Afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. I am so excited to finally be here. Woo! Talk about cutting her close. Welcome, welcome. Let's see if we could please have, let me look. Mr. Jack, will you please lead us in the pledge? Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And songsters. Oh. Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, here's words.
Words.
Words. Whoever needs words.
All right, here we go. Let me get it between you so I see.
This is group participation. You all have a rhythm part.
Yeah.
You'll get it. You guys know when to do it.
1, 2, 3. Bright, big and light, deep in the heart of Texas, prairie sky is wide and high. Deep in the heart of Texas, state is wide. Deep in the heart of Texas. Reminds me of all I love. Deep in the heart of Texas, the times when on the trail. Deep in the heart of Texas, rabbits run, deep in the heart of Texas. Deep in the heart of Texas. Deep in the heart of Texas. That's in honor of our speaker.
Yes,
You
oh
can
yes,
say-
that's right. You want me to be?
Here
Here you go. And that was in honor of our speaker today. That's from deep in the heart of Texas. There, oh, yep, that's yours. All righty. And Mr. O'Brien, our thought for the day.
And on a serious note, there was a serious accident on 580 coming down into Livermore. A big rig jackknifed and dumped its whole load of 20,000 volumes of Roget's Thesaurus. It turns out witnesses were stunned and startled and aghast, taken aback, stupefied, confused, shocked, rattled, paralyzed, dazed, bewildered, mixed up, surprised, awed, dumbfounded, nonplussed, flabbergasted, astounded, amazed, confounded, astounded, overwhelmed, horrified, numb, speechless, and perplexed. I suspect this witness picked up a copy.
You know what's ironic? Over on 84, Brian, or Dennis, over on 84, there was a garbage truck that tipped over. So I don't know if there's any, correlation between. No, it wasn't ours. It was a transfer truck. Not sure the company, but okay. So once again, as always, I cannot do what I do without the likes of you folks out there. So we have our Spur reporter today, Trudy Barnes, and she's doing double duty. Greeter as well, and she greeted me the 11th hour. Sorry about that. Spur publisher, Kathy Coyle, and our photographer extraordinaire, Irv Stowers. AV, Joel, you're back in the saddle again. Thank you so much. We missed you. And Zoom host and chat monitor, Pat Coyle. And then to round out our group, there is our sergeant at arms back in the back, taking care of business. How are we doing on our raffle? I don't know, did we buy tickets today? We did? 1,500. Woo, woo. All right, Mark, did we get tickets? Oh, okay. We better. Okay, and she changed her name again. Web Maven. I love that. Kathy Coyle takes care of our website. Public outreach, Kelly Bowers. Thank you for posting all those pictures from our visit to the rodeo grounds. So let's give them all a big round of applause. Okay, out in Zoom land, do we have any visiting Rotarians
President Sheila, we do not,
as well as guests?
nor any guests beyond our
Nor
crew.
guests. Okay, so in-house, do we have some visiting Rotarians?
Yes, we do.
Oh,
I would
perfect.
like to introduce Kamal Della from the Dublin Club.
Thank you. Welcome, President Sheila. You have a gift there on the bottom for you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Hi, thank you. Thank you.
That is so thoughtful of you. Thank you.
Madam President, fellow Rotarians, here's a man that nobody needs to have introduced, and you probably don't recognize him because Mac's not here today. Bob
Fine.
Tucknott from the Dublin Club, electrical contractor.
Hello, Bob. Hey, Bob, are you doing a little advertising there
Am I what?
with your shirt? Is there a little advertisement that you need to share with us?
I'm pre-advertising your crab feed, although this isn't a crab.
Well, thank you. That's so kind of you. All righty. Any other visiting Rotarians? Okay, how about guests? Oh, Mary Martha.
Okay, President Sheila, fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce my wife of 41 years now, Mary Martha.
Hello, Mary Martha. So nice to see you.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. I would like to introduce to you again, under extreme duress, my daughter, Stella, and also a very special guest from my hometown of Elgin, who is down here visiting. She's going to be a senior at my alma mater this year. This is Erin, and she is here with us today because her senior project is writing a book of poetry all about healing from traumatic experience. And she is here to connect and see who we might know in the writing community that would be willing to meet with her or mentor her.
Well, welcome. Nice to see you, ladies. You know, Wendy Ellison, one of our members, is quite the writer. Christy. Wendy Ellison, she's quite the writer. So that might be someone that she might want to connect with. Oh, okay. Well, you got her covered. Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. So I think that, is that everyone? Oh, wait a minute. We're all covered? Okay. All right. Moving along. Oh. Announcements. Paul Schmidt, are you here? There you are. Does he have a microphone? Hey, let's give this man an amazing hand.
So I want to thank everyone. If you weren't at the parade, you missed a wonderful parade. The weather was nice. We had members of our club there in force, and we actually had quite a few members from the morning club. So I'm sure they're going to come by, what is it, in October for a chili cook-off, that they're going to want some help, and hopefully we'll get some members to help them out. I always like to say this, is that I may do the paperwork for the parade, but I don't put on the parade. You guys do. So I want to thank everyone for all their help, and thank you. And hopefully, Sheila, we'll talk about later. I'd love to have someone from the school district to come down to get a check that we're going to give to the school district from the parade.
You know what? We'll need to arrange that. Yes. Paul, once again, thank you for a job well done. And also, thank you all that attended the luncheon at the rodeo grounds. How was that? Was that good for everyone? Was that good? Okay, so next year we're going to do it in the same spot. What we'll do is we'll move over so we can turn on the fans because they actually have fans down there. Yes, yes, yeah. There was fans, but they weren't all plugged in, but we'll get everything geared up so we can have a little more circulating air. Anyway, so thank you all so much for coming. Okay, next. Gowd, can we give, oh, do you want to come on up here, Gowd? Ooh, I got to take care of my business today.
Did you all miss me? Well, I didn't see any checks in the mail. All right. Well, I'm glad to be back. A cooler place from 105, 106 every day. And so few good things. I did go visited the hospital for which we gave equipment for ICU. And first time I have seen so many babies less than 2 pounds. And we can see the monitors we have provided and also the humidifier were in action. And sorry, I didn't make a presentation. I just came Sunday night. So I will catch up and give some, show that later on. And the next thing I want to talk is that our Rotary year is coming to an end this month. We only got one more club meeting. And we still need to meet our goals. We are short by around 25,000 annual funds, 6 Polio Plus. Anyone can do whatever you can. Please donate. So we'll meet our goal and we'll get our DDF just like last year. And I'll be calling few of you and asking for the help from some of you. And I hope we can make it. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I think I'm almost there, Gowd, right? I just got to do a little bit more and I'll meet my quota. So thank you for reminding me. Is Splend here? No? Okay, well, okay. So it's my part. Where's Splend? There. Oh, you can stand in. Thank you. Can we give him a mic, please? I was going to sing that song. It's my party.
There we go. The last meeting, which is the week after next, is our demotion party at Jackie's Place, Olden Lane, 5 p.m. And the cost is just $20. That includes your food, wonderful food,
And entertainment.
barbecue,
And entertainment.
and drink, free wine and beer and soft drinks, and some amazing senior entertainment. So please call in and let our treasurer know that you're coming, get the money to him. We need to know how much food to get. So please, and this is for your spouse, your significant other, a potential member, whatever you would like. So thank you. One other quick thing. We have a Rotary Golf outing this year on Thursday, July 18th. It's at Wente. I have a wonderful deal, just $79, and that includes prize money, cart, and everything else. So can't beat that. It's normally about 130 without prize money. So let me know if you want. I've got a few places open. Don't wait any much longer. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Mike. I bought a table, so to speak, just in case nobody showed up so I could have my own party. Oh boy. Oh, look at that hairdo. Oh, Joel, you need to. Oh, okay. The QR code isn't working today to buy tickets.
I'm going to move the mic way up here. Okay, it's a 2-pager sign-up list here. None of the jobs are too arduous, but if you like to staff a grill or get the food ready, we have a bunch of different volunteer positions that you can help out with. I'll start it in the back row and it'll go all along the back row and then come back down the front row. Thank you for helping.
Thank you, Joel. I'll help. Figured I'll do something. Okay. Show up. Okay, I can do that. That's my job. I can do that. Okay. So next week is my last meeting. So I'm going to be saying some thank yous, more than anything. I'm not going to make it sad. I'm going to try and make it fun. But just kind of a little recap and again, to show my appreciation to all of you for an amazing year that I've had. I will tell you, this has been one of the most positive experiences I can almost say for sure in my entire life. So anyway, that's going to be happening next week. And this week, we have an amazing speaker, and Mr. Mark Roberts is going to introduce him for us. We're a little early, but I think by looking at those slides, he could use this time. Am I correct? Oh, shoot. Yes. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
So there seems to be a little bit of confusion. There is no wine social tonight. It was canceled because it was felt that there was just too much going on this month. And so we will resume Wine Wednesdays on the second Wednesday of the month in July, but there is no Wine Wednesday. If you show up to Gray, you're going to be partying by yourself because even Martell's not going to be there.
And you know what? There is those, the wine, what is it called? The Wine Wednesdays that are put on, by the Wine Growers Association. Those are going on. So if you feel the need, go on their website and they'll tell you where to be. Pardon? Oh, Ocasio tonight. Okay. All right. So there you go. Yes, sir.
Very quickly, TJ is running the bar and he needs a few people to help, maybe for an hour to serve the drinks. If you would like, give TJ a call. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yes, sir, Alan. Can Alan have the mic? I love these last minute ones. This is perfect.
So Sonia and Yvonne put together this thing that we handed out at the rodeo. I put these leftovers on the table. Please take at least one. If you all bring a guest next week, we will be able to help increase our membership. But it's very important to look at this. It's a really good case for being a Rotarian. And I probably handed out 100 of them, and I went talking individually to people about Rotary, and most of them are not going to join Rotary, but they were all very impressed, not only with Rotary in general, but what our two clubs do for this community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Also, and I'm thinking if we get a lot of visitors, we want to be able to be sure to feed them. So maybe we somehow could communicate. We don't want to pull them here and then have them watch us eat. Anyway, we'll work on that. All righty. Any other announcements? Okay, you're on.
President Sheila was saying that her last meeting wouldn't be sad, and I just beg to differ. There's one of us who will be profoundly sad to see her term end. So I'm not sure who it's not going to be sad for. I mean, clearly it's going to be happy for President Sheila. She's excited. All right. With that in mind, a member of our very own club, Jay, is going to get up and give us a talk that has its origins now 3 decades ago. And so for those of you who know Jay and who actually were paying any attention at all at the meeting, he's from Texas and he got out. I mean, I think that's just a wonderful testament to begin with. I mean, he could have sort of ended there and been ahead. for like the whole life. In addition to that, he is a scientist. And in addition to that, he had all sorts of interesting things happen to him on his journey of just being a regular old scientist and being in very interesting places, doing very interesting things, all the way till he retired and couldn't retire and works for the Hertz Foundation. And so Jay's going to tell us a little bit about that and a lot about this, which for those of us who try desperately to understand a little bit about the world around us, understanding a little more about this part of the world is, I think, really important for us to be good citizens of the world and to sort of be better Rotarians. And with that, Jay, I'm going to invite you up to talk a little bit about what is now getting to be the point where some of this happened before some of the members in the room here were born. And so you've been around. And that's not a fishing jacket. I'll have you know, Jay's going to explain what he's actually wearing. He's not simply trying to land that big bass. All right, Jay, here we go.
I'm a fidgety speaker, so I'm going to wander if that's okay. This talk is strangely connected with Rotary. Those who do this sort of thing are not normally publicly identified. And the first time I ever gave this talk was to the Security Council of the United Nations in New York. And after the Security Council broke from its private session, the International Atomic Energy Agency had a press conference. And one of the guys from the IEA who, they're nice people, but they're attorneys. And he had a question he couldn't handle. So in front of 200 people, he says, "Oh, Dr. Davis will answer that question," blowing my cover completely. So I became the face of the inspections for much of that summer. Just to give you an example how tight the security was, we travel into Iraq on UN passports, not our own passports. So you'll get a sniff of this. Both my wife and Paul Thompson were nice enough to point out that I was in better shape in 1991. This is still my 1991 gear. My only apology is I had spent the 80s training to do triathlons. So yeah, I was in better shape. Now I was challenged by Mark's talk, which had by count 75 slides. And I pared this down from my standard university colloquium, which is about 80. So I only have 57, but I have extra time and I'm going to take you through it. All I'll say is that if you're very lucky in life, you experience history, sometimes you get to be part of making history. And I had a chance to do that on this gig. When my cover was blown and I finally gave a public talk, the next guy who asked me to talk was Brian Mayall. And so my introduction to Rotary and Rotary's introduction to me was the first time I ever gave this talk here or there. So at the old hotel. So I'm kind of coming home. Okay, that's what I am now. These inspections were done under the authority of the UN Security Council Resolution 687. This was a ceasefire resolution for the end of the Gulf War. There was nothing else, just a ceasefire. It required Iraq to accept destruction, removal, or rendering harmless of chemical, biological weapons, ballistic missiles, and nuclear weapons or nuclear weapons capable stuff. This is not done under treaty. It is not done under a standard international agreement. It was a ceasefire. So it set no precedent for any future arms control, which is important. You've seen this once, you may never see it again. The activity drew a lot of attention and you had to have a sense of humor. I like this from the Atlanta Beacon. You can see the UN inspector talking to nice Mr. Hussein, who says, "It's a bomb shelter. You have a problem with that?" You had to laugh to do it. There were varying actors to do the inspections. Biological and chemical stuff were done by active duty military from the coalition that fought the war because they have the relevant skills. They handle that crap, like it or not. The IAEA was asked to carry out the on-site inspections, create a destruction plan, and create a plan for ongoing monitoring. However, the IAEA has no nuclear weapons expertise. They monitor reactors in the nuclear fuel cycle. So they had to reach outside their house to find people who could recognize nuclear weapons hardware. Enter the cowboys, people like me. To do the inspections, the IAEA provided staff who had previous inspection experience. They provided supporting transportation, explosive ordnance disposal, which is very important because scientists and engineers have the habit of picking shiny things off the ground, which is not survival related if you've been in a country that's been bombed extensively. The Special Commission provided what are euphemistically called special experts, people like me. I'm not a nuclear weapons designer, but I sure as hell can recognize the parts in the facilities. And some were qualified for high-risk field operations. I'd been part of the nuclear counterterrorism program, working with Army and FBI, psychologically screened by the FBI, by the CIA for high-stress stuff. Some were not well qualified, and we had to shake those guys out. And unfortunately, shaking people out in the field is pretty grim. This was a forced marriage that the IAEA did not like because it exposed them to people like me. The cycle for these things was to be briefed in Washington or Vienna on intelligence material that couldn't go into the country, meet the rest of the team in Bahrain, in the Persian Gulf, and pull them together for a while, meet your interpreters, your military people, your accompanying physician, who was always important, fly into Al Habanea, which is a military airport west of Baghdad, pull into Baghdad, and then get any local equipment you needed from the UN stores. You'd start the inspection at 0700 the next day, and since Iraq was cut off from the banking system, each of us carried $5,000 in $100 bills. I have a wallet that tapes to my thigh. A word about these inspections: it's a 14-hour day, and you go 7 days a week. My personal record is being outside and working in a 133-degree day. So this is kind of wearing stuff. The team has about a 2-week lifetime under those conditions. At night, when you got to have a drink and relax, you would write a report. And on the fourth inspection, we were writing a summary to Bush and Gorbachev daily, which is an interesting composition activity if you want to be a writer. Think about how you draft that. You're videotaped at all times by the minders, our accompanying Iraqi security people. I mentioned the temperature. And so the working lifetime, as I said, is about 2 weeks. You just kind of fall apart physically and mentally, partly because you get wound up so tightly you want to take somebody in the stairwell and beat the crap out of them. And that's frowned upon when you wear a UN badge. So this is sort of the point of the spear. There are 2 Brits, 3 Yanks there, all of us very aggressive, all of us with these strange backgrounds and strange preparation. Unlike the IAEA, we did not particularly want to look friendly. So that's what I look like most of the time in the field. It's sort of you would not want to run into that guy in a dark corner some night, right? Yeah. My typical pack, I didn't bring my pack, I still have it. It had 2 to 3 cameras, film, SLR, VCR camera, digital, not much digital stuff. This is before that. Sampling gear in bags, take triplicate samples. The lab wasn't equipped to give me that stuff, so I drove down to Santa Cruz and pillaged the warehouse at my daughter's archaeological company to get the hundreds of bags and swipes and stuff I needed. Maps and notebooks, which you had to treat as classified and keep on your body. First aid pack, 2 liters of water, 1 or more meals ready to eat, or meals ready to eject, as the military calls them. Radio and a universal tool on my belt. And then occasionally when I needed it, I got a fire axe and strapped it to the back of my pack, because when they couldn't find keys, I would say, well, I have the master key. The load got to be a pain to carry around, and I really wanted a battle harness with a video camera on it, which every cop wears now, but didn't exist then. That would have been nice to have. The first inspection in May found reactor fuel at a site called Tuwaitha. I'll show you that. It was their one declared nuclear research facility. At all the other sites, the documents had been destroyed and the equipment removed. You'll see what a research lab looks like when it's visited by B-52s. That's kind of fun. There's a huge facility at Tarmiya north of Baghdad that had a suspicious industrial nature, rather like Y-12 at Oak Ridge, where the uranium was enriched for the Hiroshima bomb. After the inspection was over, the IAEA was very happy. They said, well, our inspections worked. There was no nuclear weapons program. But a guy who had worked at Y-12 in World War II looked at the pictures and said, my God, I've seen a dinosaur. And so since I'm a mass spectrometry guy, among other things, I was tapped on 2 days' notice, got a call on Friday saying, could you be in Baghdad on Tuesday? which was a surprise to Mary. There's some things in marriage you don't share. And so I was put on the second inspection to pretty much lead looking at that activity. This is the housing in Baghdad, not too bad. This is the Palestine Meridian. But you get your first hint of how life will go when you go there and the power goes out in your room and the whole radio continues to play, which means the radio is listening to you. That's just, hi, welcome home. Baghdad is a beautiful place. This is just a very small shrine mosque across from our hotel. I must have shot 3 rolls of camera and just filmed just in tourist mode, taking pictures of beautiful things. It was filled with tributes to nice Mr. Hussein. The fountain, which is in front of him, was turned off to save power. But their lack of cooperation was pretty much demonstrated from the first day. At Al-Tuwaitha, they found that all records had been removed and burned that morning just before they showed up. That's a typical welcome to the game. The equipment this is in a declared facility, had been removed from the buildings. This film was shot by the first inspection team. By the second inspection, my trip into the country, the buildings had been destroyed and the sites scraped and covered with new dirt. So you couldn't do sampling. I had mentioned that the fuel in the Russian supplied reactor was a concern. It was highly enriched uranium and would have been weapons useful. The Iraqis actually removed that fuel while the site was being bombed, which shows no small courage, and hid it at a farm. But they took the team there and the stuff was removed and shipped out of the country under IAEA control. So at the end of the first inspection, no nuclear weapons related technology had been found, enormous clearing and destruction had been done, records destroyed, equipment removed, inadequate explanations were provided, all of this. And so second inspection was set up with me as the technical lead to pursue these questions. The first stop was at a site called Al-Tuwaitha, which was the declared one. I think I've mentioned most of this. We moved on to Abu Ghraib, which you have certainly heard of, which is where interesting materials mounted on trucks had been photographed. We had continuous satellite coverage. Every US satellite took a picture of the country on its pass, and we had ways of getting images. They saw interesting stuff on trucks, but we were not allowed in. The next day, everything was gone. Then we first went on to Tarmiya. This is the mysterious facility seen on the first inspection. After seeing those trucks move, we rolled up to Al-Fallujah to a motor transport compound on zero notice, surprising the Iraqis, demanded to be let in. The commanding colonel said we couldn't come in, but we could climb his water tower and look into the compound. And he was executed for that. This is not a friendly place to work. I'll tell you about how their clearance system worked in a while. That water tower became famous. 2 team members, one of whom has pathological fear of heights. You can see 2 guys in blue climbing up to the top of the tower, photographed the trucks leaving the back of the compound. And we broadcast all this in the clear, which was useful for us. We were not allowed to have encrypted radios because that looks too much like CIA stuff, which it would have been, or military stuff, which the UN was allergic to. But the media in Baghdad could follow us by listening to our transmissions. So when they started shooting, and I'll show you that in a minute, you could see this heavy truck convoy starting up and going out the back. And there are big, heavy tank transports loaded with very interesting looking stuff, ripping along in the dirt at the side of a highway. Any of you who've been in the military will appreciate the comment made by one of our members who was an Air Force pilot, Army helicopter pilot and Ranger qualified, who said, it's a military compound, 10% of the trucks will break down. And he was right. When they started breaking down, our guys started photographing them, and they were then curbed and fired on by Iraqi security forces. You're never sure if they're shooting at you. One thing our interpreter said is you have to understand these people talk with their guns, and you just have to guess which is right or not. He saved his film. They took his film and his camera. He saved it by putting the film in his underwear, which I thought was pretty cool for an Army officer. And for that, Colin Powell, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, personally came to his office when he got back and gave him the Distinguished Service Medal, which is pretty damn cool. It tells you something about Colin Powell that you should appreciate. Surprised the hell out of that young man, I gotta tell you. Anyway, the equipment came from these buildings at Altarmia. This is the main physics building. This is what oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Next to the building were two fascinating buildings. Bob will like this as an electrical contractor, but Bob has gone away from us. Each building had 64 doors. And behind each door was a large power transformer. Okay, 128 power transformers, each one rated for 2 megawatts. So the building had 1/4 of a gigawatt wired into it. Well, there are only 3 uses for power in that quantity: reducing bauxite to aluminum, which is done; extracting magnesium from seawater, which is done on the Texas coast for airplane building; or enriching uranium to U-235 to make nuclear weapons. So it's kind of hard to dodge what this was. This is sort of what your lab looks like when the B-52s have come by at night. The place was well hidden. The power feed to it disappeared underground about 7 kilometers away, and there was no obvious fencing around it. When the B-52s visited, one of the Iraqi minders with us said, you know, there's a village 10 kilometers away. They weren't hit, but they heard it for an hour. And he said, and the people in the village didn't quit screaming for 7 hours. It's so terrifying to hear it walk over. Now, you'll get to see what's under that concrete in a minute. It was poured for concealment. When they finally jackhammered the concrete off, we found long rows of iron blocks. You'll see some nicer drawings of this later. This is the return yoke for the magnetic field and the electromagnetic separators. Different design than we used in World War II, built more leisurely, by the way. They had been at this for years, and as far as we know, not detected, but strangely, the building was bombed. So maybe we're better than we think. If you had an ultimately high clearance in 1942, you could have seen this up at Berkeley. This is a calgatron, the first isotope enricher. On the left side is an ion source. The beam is bent in a magnetic field, which runs straight into the screen. And over on the right side is a receiver, which catches the U-235, which is fissionable and is 0.7% of enriched uranium. And the U-238, which is non-fissionable, just dumped over and, the side. These things cycle for the lifetime of the fuel supply, then were removed and recovered. Within a year, this had been built at Oak Ridge. This is a Y-12 facility. This is half the history of the Manhattan Project is the history of spectacular contracting. This is a 1 million square foot building, and DuPont was told, well, here are the drawings for the footings. You start pouring concrete and we'll get the details above the floor as we go. Just put in utilities appropriate for high-tech chemistry per square foot. The famous story is the coils in that were made with silver taken from Fort Knox, because it's a better conductor. And the copper was needed for weapons, for just shells and making cannon barrels, alloys. The best thing is when the Republicans finally won the White House, one of the first things they did is demand that Fort Knox be assayed to make sure the silver could come back. It had come back. These are fantastic. These are called a racetrack. You can understand the name. All the coils in there are made with copper. They're smaller second stage separators. And all this is run by Tennessee housewives who are on the floor above, who had no idea what they were doing. They were simply told, turn knob A and keep needle B at this reading, turn knob C and keep, needle D at that reading. The best point is they produced better results than the physicists and engineers who built the system. But if you showed any curiosity about what you were doing, they lifted your badge at the end of the shift and you were relocated a couple of 100 miles away. So this was serious, serious security in our system. This is very different. This drawing is from one of my notebooks, and it's one of my treasures. This is a drawing of the Iraqi separator, proudly signed by the designer, Ali M. Hussein. I pulled a neat trick on this inspection. I said to the guys, engineers and scientists who were terrified, said, you know, we've been asking you questions and you're tired of it. So I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to go to the blackboard and I'm going to draw what I think you built like a student. And you're going to correct me. And they just opened like little flowers. They were so happy to get to teach and brag about what they'd done. And my partner said, my God, I saw the non-proliferation treaty violated about 50 times in 1 hour while they took you through that stuff. Of course, I already knew it, so it didn't matter. So that's Mr. Hussein's drawing. This is an engineering drawing of it. The iron yoke I stood on is at the bottom. The vertical magnets stand like that, and they could inverse salami slice. Whenever they had another section ready to go, they would just pull back the pole tip at the end, insert the next one, and off they'd go. So it was a very, very clever design done over several years. When it was fully operational, Tarmia and a sister facility at RCoL, far north, that was not bombed but never equipped, would have duplicated Y-12. So they had the industrial capacity we had. And remember, Y-12 made just one bomb, described as the most expensive weapon in the world. When we got their material and assayed it, they were climbing a path we guessed were 18 to 24 months away from having the material for one weapon. Very sophisticated. If you needed a spare part, you scanned it with a barcode reader, and the part was manufactured in an industrial plant 100 kilometers away. They explained the program partly as saying, well, you know, World War II created your economy, and we're going to do the same thing. If we worked at the scale of technology, we could bootstrap our economy. We spent days counting parts. This is kind of fun. This is a 5-meter diameter magnet. That is a big sucker. Those are what stood. You can see the pole tip is bowed to focus the ion beams. Count the coils. That's fun. This is the vacuum chamber that went between magnets. And we actually got the ion sources. On the left is the snout that leans into the magnet and holds the ion source, and some vacuum components. For the women in the crowd, this was an equal opportunity activity. That's Big Shirley. I was principal chemist. She was principal, I was principal physicist. She was principal chemist. We were walking in Baghdad one day and she said, I feel like people are staring at my butt. And I said, Sheila, you're wearing pink pants. Little cultural work sometimes has to be done. So the program was pretty impressive. They had made physical improvements on what we did in the Manhattan Project. They used Hewlett-Packard computers instead of Tennessee housewives to run things. No criticism of Tennessee housewives, just standard ubiquitous computers you'd find in any lab in the country. The operations, as I said, were backed up by an impressive set of numerically controlled production facilities. Spare parts were ordered by a barcoding system. And again, they justified the program in analogy to the Manhattan Project as a driver for industrial development. And as I said, we estimated they were 18 to 36 months from sufficient material for a bomb and would have gotten there. We made a very unpleasant discovery, though, once they declared the program and took us to other sites. This is very unpleasant. That's a centrifuge at a storage facility north of Baghdad. This technology was supposedly well controlled and could not exist in Iraq. That's a carbon fiber cylinder. You'll see a better picture in a minute. It's made with special carbon fibers, wound on special winding machines, balanced with special balancing machines, lubricated with special lubricants, none of which can be purchased on the open market. They had about a 5-step procure system that started with legitimate purchase, repackaging, reshipping, repackaging, reshipping, repackaging, reshipping, till it ended up in Iraq. Taking the program apart required taking that apart. I got my only magazine cover from this. Here I am holding up a centrifuge, and my lab friends for my birthday created a nude centerfold of me and put it in the magazine. Just in case you worry about how the lab supports you when in the field. It was an old picture of Burt Reynolds on a bare rug, and before Photoshop, they dodged my face onto it. Mary wouldn't let me bring it. She keeps it hidden somewhere. But Physics Today is the trade journal. So this is a big damn deal. I never imagined being on the cover of Physics Today, not for any research work. A sixth team went in with a different mix. I was kept off for security reasons. I had kind of worn out my welcome in Iraq with 2 visits, and I'll tell you a funny story about when I left. This is a larger team. It had 45 people, much more operational, less technical, far more US members, fewer IAE members, fewer UN members, fewer nationalities. As I said, I wasn't allowed to play, and Mary was just as glad, partly because the target site was next door to Iraqi internal security. So we weren't exactly sure what would happen when the door was kicked open. The highest probability to be nothing there, the second highest to be documents, no entry, third highest entry, but then kicked out. Detention with the documents was not considered, and that's what happened. Despite previous experience, Iraqi bureaucracy was always underestimated. You'll see a tremendous mistake they made. It was understood that this was not a low-risk enterprise. And so to hide what they were doing, the team members loaded up just like they were going to the field. The building was actually next door to the Palestine Meridian where we've been sleeping all these weeks. And so they motored off and turned around, turned right back into the next parking lot and crashed into the door of the building. And so they caught the Iraqis off guard. They found a surprising number of documents and computers, among other things, the procurement records and the time cards for the program. And one of the Iraqi accusations is we would take all those names and give them to Mossad, and the Israelis would come assassinate all these people. So they were very, very concerned about time cards and identification of their people. Astonishingly, what was found was an aluminum chest that had all of the design and experimental records of PC-3, Petrochemical 3, which was the cover name for the Iraqi weapons program. They found every design of a weapon in there. They found their test results. It was unimaginable that this would all be gathered in one place. And our only thought is the Iraqis had put it all together, intending to take it out of there someday, and then just failed at the last step. But this was, you know, all the magic you would ever want to find. In consequence, we could identify a place called Al-Thir, which was their production facility, where they were shaping explosives and shaping metal, and destroyed that. We found the diagnostic bunkers and shot tables like we have out at Site 300 for doing non-nuclear tests of the components that would go into a nuclear weapon. These had been bombed. Every now and then you see a hole. So the way we destroyed them was filling the bunkers with concrete and scrap metal. And since I lean into archaeology, I always wonder 5,000 years from now when some set of archaeologists with no knowledge of what's there start chipping through that crap and wondering what on earth were these people celebrating and honoring here? It's, you know, we create mysteries as we go along. So what do the inspections accomplish? We found safeguarded HEU, which is concern. We found the electromagnetic separation hardware and proof of evasion of the non-proliferation treaty on the second, the third, and fourth characterized the electromagnetic program and centrifuge programs. And we got to meet Jafar Dia Jafar, who was the leader of their program. Interesting personal past, educated at the University of Birmingham in Great Britain, successful nuclear physics, came back to Iraq with his British wife and 2 sons. And after a couple of years, the Iraqi government said, well, you're not leaving the country anymore. And we've given your wife a settlement and we've sent your wife and her kids home. It's sort of like the Marines. If the Marines wanted you to have a wife, they'd have given you one. Okay, so that was the deal. I'll tell you about him and security in a bit. We finally got admissions of at least a laboratory level weapons program and then completed all the destruction. So what did we learn? UNSCOM learned how to do very effective inspections with unspecified Western intelligence help, and I can tell you a little bit about that because it's of varying value. We learned that we underestimated the Iraqi program and their cleverness very badly. These were very good. I got in trouble for saying of the 3,000 people I'd met, I'd hire 2,000 at the lab any day, except for the clearance problem, and that ruffled feathers. The Iraqis became much better at evasion, denial, and hiding. It was too late to matter here, but it was a skill that caused them a lot of trouble in the Second Gulf War. The rest of the world learned to bury deeply and covertly any activity or facility. The sales of earth-moving equipment skyrocketed in the next decade all around the world. Tunneling and boring and heavy equipment for digging and hiding just exploded. And of course, that causes us problems to this day. We changed greatly. I imagined I was going to come home to Livermore and complete my career running the Center for Accelerator Mass Spectrometry, which is what I was doing till I was called away. I had a great research program combining toxicology, oncology, nutritional science, drug evaluation, climate change, climate record and reconstruction, low-level dosimetry, and even nuclear and chemical biologicals. Instead, I became the national spokesman for this, eventually leading to be asked in 1998 to form the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, which pulled Mary and me out of Livermore for 3 years. So my joining Rotary was delayed by other duties as assigned, as they say. The different story, I led 2,000 military and civilians and had the status of a lieutenant general as a civilian, which is a very interesting experience. They have to give you an equivalent rank because they have to know where to seat you at the table. I'm not kidding. This is the big deal. And what's the rank of your hench person? So my deputy was an Air Force Major General. My physical career ended in national security. Literally, I never again touched the controls of my own accelerator. Now, that was my child. I'm not kidding. I came back and I never put my hands on the controls again. So all I can say is you never know where volunteer work will lead. When I talk to young people, I say, if there's a chance to step sideways, take it, do it. You have no idea where it'll lead. The inspections had a very sad ending, though. In its rush to the war in 2003, the Bush administration never asked any of us with on-the-ground experience our opinions. It is as though we didn't exist. We would have told them everything had been destroyed. The import channels were closed. The programs could not have been reconstituted. Inspections would find nothing. And all those statements were proven true after the Second Gulf War. They didn't ask because they didn't want to hear. They were determined to have a war and hopefully get the oil. And as they put it, bring the market economy to Iraq, which is wonderful. Well, they didn't know their Sunni from their Shiite. And that's a bad mistake in Iraq. We lost 4,000 dead. It's estimated 200,000 Iraqi casualties, immediate casualties as a result of that war. And the country is still destroyed politically and economically. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. What questions are fair, but Hank Shea has to wait till last.
Jay, I remember hearing a story how you and your team were retained and kept in one place for a time, and you pulled out your satellite phone and called back to the United States.
That wasn't my team. That was on the 6th inspection. In fact, it's a great story. I got time. I have a set of bar stories and war stories for 10 guys. David Kay and his team were held for 4 days in the parking lot of that facility. But David had a satellite phone. So he pulled it out, made his report to the UN, and then he said to every member of his team, call your hometown and ask to talk to the media and just tell them what you're doing. Well, created a wave, a media wave all around the world that was just fantastic, And then about midnight, the phone rang with an incoming call. And a voice said, you don't know me, but I'm the owl shift operator on this satellite. And you have run up a hell of a bill. I said, could you give me a second credit card just in case? And your vision is, a 20-year-old reading PC Week with his feet on the console drinking Diet Cola. And David explained who he was and where he was. And the guy said, oh, you're at the edge of one of our coverage zones. He said, on my own authority, I can reposition the antenna and give you better service. Would you like that? And that's my story of why communism failed, because that authority was delegated to the bottom of the food chain. Fix it for the customer right now. It's absolutely fantastic. It's in the you can't make this shit up category of good stories. Anything else?
Oh, okay.
Don't fight children.
Don't, okay. Well, so I know you're kind of retired, but not, do they periodically call and pick your brain on things? Are you still kind of a resource?
Yes. I get asked, particularly in the Trump administration, when they were trying to do crazy things, I would get asked, we had this proposal for this kind of treaty. Do you think we could do those inspections? And I would, get my fire extinguisher and explain it didn't work that way. And I don't want to identify where this happened, but I got some amazingly stupid answers. I was called to one very hush meeting where we have an A team and a B team and a C team, and we only can talk about what's in our category. So, but tell us how we can do these inspections. This set of clowns, I'll be frank, who were at the lab, had never themselves gone to talk to the lab people who'd done inspections. And they were going to do inspections in North Korea. And my first question was, well, okay, how many native speaking Koreans do you have? Because the two languages have diverged. I have very good German, but it diverged in Western Germany. East Germany is where my German is very good now because it was in the refrigerator. And they said, oh, we were told we couldn't have any Korean speakers. I said, well, that's cool. Are they giving you blindfolds too? So I wasn't asked back after that meeting. I twice have been told, gee, it's Thursday. Could you get on the airplane Saturday and go to Seoul and teach classes in this? And the funny thing is I had already done that in 1992. I gave a long briefing at the State Department on how to do inspections, but that was a long time ago, to South Korean military officers. Yeah, they call, and I don't, the offer to go to South Korea was, can you do a 48-hour turnaround? I said, you talking to an 80-year-old? They get a 48-hour turnaround to Seoul? But yeah, they ask. They get in trouble, they ask, but I don't volunteer much.
Jay, to what extent, if any, did you and subsequent teams find foreign assistance in the Iraqi enrichment programs?
The worst thing they found was willful German ignorance of stuff. A lot of things like special lubricants, special oils, things like that came out of Germany wittingly. And German companies were punished, and some Germans may have gone to prison for it. That was the worst break in the system. But again, the Iraqis were very clever. Those beautiful, beautiful magnet poles I show you were ordered in completely misleading shapes in Europe and described as blanks for making T-72 tank hulls or tank turrets, and then shipped to Iraq. And then the Iraqis did the final machining themselves, which they were good at. And machining a 5-meter piece of iron is not a trivial task. So it was a combination of immensely bright people, but they'd been working on this for 10 years. So it was not like the Manhattan Project. And this guy, Jafar Diaz-Jafar, was just, he was so good that you could tell his sphere of influence expanded every time. People said, well, their missiles were crappy. By the time they had a weapon, the missiles would have been good. He would have moved on to fixing the Scuds. You never underestimate your opponent. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. But after 30 years, you still walking, holding. There's no radiation, no contamination with people there. There was no health issue with all that.
We watch everybody. One of my concerns, I mean, I'll say it's what I call a black swan event. It's the country that would like it to be known it has a weapon, but not known who had it. And my particular black swan for that is someday there'll be a giant wham down in the deep South Atlantic off Antarctica. No debris will come to the surface, but the seismic signal will be instantly interpreted and instantly heard worldwide, because as a result of these things is a very, very big ocean monitoring system run by the UN. The arms control wing of the UN runs those systems, so the US can't deny it. I mean, it's high tech. They will announce the yield and the approximate location within an hour or two. It's not controllable by us. And then the political fight will start. I don't want to say any more about it because I've written that up in 2 pages and pushed it into the system saying, you really ought to think about this. And they said, well, we're thinking. You do what you can.
Jay, we have one hand raised here on Zoom.
What?
We have one hand raised here on Zoom. I'm not sure who it is. Owner, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Jay?
Yeah.
If you were setting up such an inspection program again, in perhaps similar circumstances, how would you do things differently than this program had been set up?
Well, Hank, that sort of depends upon what the rules of the game are. It's not going to be unilateral unless you fought a war. The inspections after the second Gulf War, my team from Ditcher went in to do those. I was long gone, but you know, they could do anything they wanted. They even carried weapons. They did that because they were facing a defeated country. It depends upon what agreement did you negotiate and how'd you do it. I certainly would like to have toys like encrypted radios and, like I said, a chest-mounted camera. So I was forever fumbling for the right damn camera. And there are places I only got on film and places I only got on tape. And I would come home and say, how the hell did I blow that? You know, I didn't get the picture I should have gotten. So, you know, simpler hardware. But I'll tell you one UN story I like. We beat up the UN about not being, you know, sort of a dumb agency. When they fired at us at Fallujah and started this riot, Mary worries, and she was crossing the kitchen at 6 a.m. to turn on the BBC, and the phone rang. There was a voice she'd never heard, said, "This is the UN in New York. I want you to know there's been shooting outside Baghdad. Jay's fine. They're all fine. They're headed back to the hotel, and his first assignment will be to sit down and write a fax to you. That's the first thing he will do." And that fax popped into my fax machine out at the lab and was hand delivered, you know, by 8 o'clock or something, or 9 o'clock our time. So the UN takes care of its people in the field very, very well. I was pleased to see that. They're a good field operation, because God knows they've had people being shot at for decades now. So they know how to lean into the teeth of the tiger. But Hank, it'll be a dead start every time. And that's why it's important to know what you did in the past.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Yep, okay.
I gotta apologize because I didn't bring a bottle of wine, but I'll make sure you get it next week.
I don't need one.
Oh, you don't need wine?
I don't need one.
Oh, that's good. All right, let's give Jay another big round of applause. That was exciting. All righty. So ladies and gentlemen, two things. Next week, my last meeting, and then the demotion party. And we have a number to call. All righty, Mark. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you so much. We'll see you here next week.